Welcome to the Crossroads Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Hunter Grand, your personal agent for change, making life easy, Barz Dre.
And I'm fempreneur extraordinaire, tech diva all day, Dre Renee.
And this is the Crossroads, where there's only one rule.
Be free to be you.
So I guess y'all can tell what time of day we're recording because it ain't a wine glass or some dark liquor's coffee on today.
Coffee. I don't even have any. That might be the problem. I just have one.
Yeah. I need to get off it, really. That's gonna be one of my things for my plus minus is cut the caffeine so I can get this body right and get to zaddy status.
Well,
yeah.
You're well on your way. It's just a decision.
Yeah. I always say, like, if I had kids or stepkids and I go to their school, I need their teachers like, that's your daddy.
Whatever motivates you.
You seen such and such, daddy.
Right.
You know. Always at parent teacher conference. What do you do now? What do you do this time?
Right.
Right. How you feeling this week?
Oh, I'm good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm making it do what it do. You know what I'm saying? I am weathering the storm. But we're not gonna let it stop what we doing, and just praying to come out on the other side of this. You know.
Yeah. And you will. One thing is for sure, that storms don't last. They will have to end. You will make it to the other side. That's encouragement for you. That's encouragement for anybody that's watching. Like, and it can suck, while you're in. And the one thing is for sure that we can look forward to is that it will end. We may not know when it's going to end. You don't know how it's going to end, but we do know that that it's going to end. So, lifting you up, holding you up in prayer.
I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? It's that's all about, it'll end up being an episode and we'll talk about it one day and everything else once it's passed. But we are still doing the work. We are still in prayer, and we are going to build, because this is one of the things that's going to be a barrier for a lot of said storms, right? Like we're building the wall or whatnot. So before we do that, let's pay some bills, because we got to be able to do that even in the middle of the storm. So y'all, as always, the Crossroads Podcast is brought to you by the House of 334.
It's the house. For
all your business, branding, and copyright needs, go to houseof334.com. It is Black owned, it is woman owned, it is Black woman owned, and it is amazing. And make sure you move quickly, because the house will fill up fast. The Crossroads also brought to you by the Crossroads. You can go to our Bitly and find out everything we're doing. Follow us on all of our social medias, our email addresses, and things that we have coming up. You go to bit.ly/the Crossroads, THEXROSSROADZ. And for those of you who continue to donate to make this thing go, we appreciate you. And if you want to be involved in that with our roadies and road dogs that keep this thing going, y'all, like we say all the time, this is a labor of love, but love ain't free. And if you think it is, go tell your landlord that you love them. So we are doing a lot of big things, and we have our membership area coming very, very soon. So look out for that. And if you are watching this on YouTube right now, which most of you are, scroll down right now. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button as well. Share it with everybody you love and know, so that we can grow. If you're listening to us on your audio platforms, Spotify, Apple, etc., make sure you go to YouTube. That's youtube.com/crossroads, XrossroadZ, and hit that subscribe button so that you know when new episodes drop. For those of you who want to make submissions to the show, that could be your scenarios, your stories, guest suggestions. If you want to be a guest on the show, or if you have questions for some of our upcoming topics, you can email us at crossroadspodcast@gmail.com. That's Crossroads with an X instead of S, it's a Z. XrossroadZ podcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. Spear finger.
Yeah, all of that. I do my spear fingers outward. I don't do I do
Sounds
Andre
like
3000.
somebody's being, yeah, I'm like, that's like somebody putting a hex on you, a little boo boo
I
on
mean,
you.
it's still spirit is spirit.
Yeah, that's
We ain't
true.
say which it's good juju though. It's good juju.
Okay, all right.
You know what I'm saying? Let me not get excommunicated from the church. You know how it goes. So what are we talking about this week?
Wow. Well, this week we are discussing constructive criticism, and it can be in
Mm.
friendships, relationships, professionally,
Mhm.
sometimes
Professional ships.
we have, right, professionalships. We have to be told about ourselves or
Yeah.
things we do
Mhm.
or how we've done it.
Mm. Sounds like an evaluation.
Sounds like an
I wondered,
evaluation.
I don't want to jump the gun. What do you think it would be like? So you have your evaluation at work, like in a relationship or a friendship, like your quarterly evaluation.
Uh, I mean, so to take self out of it, you're just thinking about like the action or activity. I think it'd be very productive, right? Like you'd be able to hear
Mhm.
things that you need to improve on, but also things that you do well. That's one of the things I think I hear from men most often is like, you always talking about what I don't do. You don't even talk about what I do. So in an evaluation, we could start with some praise, like,
Are we gonna do the compliment sandwich?
you always take it out the trash. Whenever you see dishes in the sink, you just look at you. Look at you.
However,
And then, right, let's move it to, let's move into some other
the
things.
good old glows and grows,
Yeah, yeah,
seeds, weeds, and needs.
yeah. Roses and thorns, all those things, right?
All the little cliches. So we're gonna just power through. I sense you're having some feelings about my feedback,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, yeah, and it's not going to impact your job. We're just
I mean,
just giving you some areas to
uh-huh,
consider. Like
right,
you're still
yeah,
employed, you're still
yeah.
here, we're
Oh, but
still together.
anytime you start the meeting off like this, there's like a closed file folder. So I just want to start with this is no reflection on you personally, right? This is not going to affect your job.
Right.
This is just a progress report.
Hmm.
And you get this hand here sitting on top of it.
Right.
So,
Right. Let's open the file.
yeah, well, we're gonna do like real slow, and it's like, okay, and then you just
Right. Right. Yeah. So overall, I think it would be,
uh-huh.
or I guess to take step outside of like if it was happening to me, right? It's
Mhm.
like, okay, that would be a productive experience. I think, again, it gives both sides an opportunity to hear like the real. There's not an assumption like, oh, because he hasn't said anything, everything must be perfect. It's like, no, here's what it is. And again, it gives everybody an opportunity to take the information and do something with it.
Mhm.
Now, practically, it probably would be very nerve-wracking, like it is at work. I haven't
Mhm.
done one of those on a job in quite some time, but like that's nobody likes to go in to hear that because, and here's the thing, you always think you're doing better
Mhm.
than perhaps how people are experiencing you.
Right. So at my last job, we had to do like what's called a 2 by 2, of course, right? So,
Mhm.
in the sections, you have to score yourself, and then your manager scores you. Right?
You're like, are
That
we together or are we misaligned?
man, I've been scored lower than myself. I was like, first of all, how I get scored this when I literally hit every benchmark? And he was like, oh, well, you the one that didn't do it. Your team did it. I'm
Isn't that what I'm supposed to do with my team? Get my
but and
team?
also he would get on my case. Like I would get feedback all the time to stop doing everything myself. Right? Like you have to trust and develop your team so that you're not always stressed out trying to get it done yourself.
Hmm.
So my team got it done. and you marked me down for it because
Yeah,
I did.
because you didn't do it. Were you in there with your team doing it or no?
Like I
Yeah. Certain things we'll never understand, but
mhm.
that's what we're talking about this week. All right. So I think we want to start with defining criticism because we talk about it being constructive as a way to make it more positive. And so clearly, just to hear criticism on its own may bring up some feelings for folks. So
Mhm.
went to the good old dictionary, good old Webster's, and criticism is defined as the expression of disapproval of
Oh,
someone or something based on perceived faults or mistakes. So that begs the question, can you constructively disapprove of somebody?
yeah, and
Yes.
yeah.
But would you, I guess, and then the question also within a relationship, is that your intention?
Hmm.
Right? Like if you want to give constructive criticism, do you want to ultimately be showing disapproval for your mate or your friend?
I think intent does matter. So, okay, before I go there, I want to point out like a very important word in that definition,
Okay.
perceived, right?
Mhm.
So it
And
ain't
perception
necessarily, yeah,
is
perception is reality,
all right.
but not objective reality, right?
I
So
get
it's
it.
kind of like I think when we start talking constructive criticism, I think just criticism across the board, it falls on the listener, right? In how you're hearing what's being said. And I know a lot of times there's this whole discussion on it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And then it's the, well, if I always got to change what I say and I can't express how I really feel because I got to worry about your feelings and blah, 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 blah. Like
Right.
this whole discussion. But to simplify that, what I kind of live with now is if I want something from you, if I'm trying to convey, if I want something from you or trying to convey something to you, I have to communicate in the way that you hear,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and then vice versa, I have to, if you want something from me, then you have to know how I hear and cater to my sensibilities. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's how the communication um, should be. And so like it's of requesting, it's like you have to know how to get that from the person. You can't communicate in your style and expect someone to hear in your style because you're the one that wants something, right? Now, if you're expressing a feeling sometimes, you know, I think it's you have to learn how to hear from that the perspective of the person of that's feeling. You see what I'm saying? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you did something, I'm upset about it, and I'm expressing that. I don't know, like, oh, how you gonna tell me to listen? Like, you upset with me, then you need to talk to me like that. I don't know. If you actually did it, you know you did something. Then them
Mm-hmm.
ears, like I have to switch to empathize with what you're saying and receiving it the way that you're feeling it because I am the cause of this feeling.
Right.
If that makes sense. So I think there's a lot of nuances, and you have to identify what's at play when the criticism is occurring in order for the conversation to be productive and effective. But just outright, I don't like this, and this is what you need to do. I don't think either side is going to get a positive response
Right.
when you're
Right.
just coming at somebody.
And so what about you talk about the dynamic of you did something and I'm upset. What about a situation where I see something that is a shortcoming, a shortfall that might impact you negatively and I'm just
Hmm.
concerned, right?
Hmm.
So I know that um I don't know, let's just say you have asthma or you're predisposed to some sort of breathing situation, lung issue, and you're a smoker.
Hmm.
Now, I do not like smoke by any form or fashion. I don't care what kind of smoke it is. I'm like, I just rather not, right? But that aside, let's just say I could live with it. You know, you smelling like a chimney. But I am I am concerned about what your actions are doing or could do to you, and therefore, if we're together, to us, right? What is a way to be constructive in my criticism, right? Where it's not necessarily you're making me mad. I mean, maybe you are, but this is more about like, I care about you, and I see this and have seen this, and there's studies about this, and maybe this has happened in my family, maybe this has happened in your family. Like, these are very big issues. How do we approach that? Family member, friend?
So let me give an unrelated example and tie it into what you just asked me.
Okay.
Had some stuff going on, and Maisha didn't know. And so when we did talk about it, she was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I was like, "Look, you had your own stuff going on, blah 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 blah."
Maisha is our friend for day twos who have no idea.
Oh yeah, Maisha's she's cool. Yeah.
Okay, so Three Musketeers. She's
right.
She's
so she was like, I think I was having some whatever, like health issue or whatever, and then she was like, "Look, I need you here. Like, if something's going on with you, like I want to know. Like, forget what I'm going. Like, yeah, we're all going through stuff. I need you here. You're too important not to have." And I'm like, okay, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that prompted the action of, if I'm going through something, tell her. You know what I mean? And so smoking, hey, I need you. And doing this can potentially take you from me, right? Sometimes you can say this, hey, can I have a selfish moment? What you mean? Can I have a selfish moment?
What if they be like, you always selfish?
Right? But I need you, right? I need you here in my life. I don't want to do this life alone. When you do things that are going to take you from me sooner than God intends, right? When you do things to you, and if we're talking marriage, you pledged yourself to me, right?
Yep. That's my body.
Right. We belong to each other. So it hurts me when you hurt your body.
Right.
It hurts me when you don't take care of your body. You promised to be here, right? Till death do us part. And I don't want that to be sooner. I want that to be so as far down the line as possible. And there are too many things in this life that we cannot control to engage in things that we can control.
Yeah.
That's good. And so it could be, it'll probably take a lot of thought before you say, like, because you might have to rehearse the lines, because you know this person. So it might be, what can I say at the beginning? It's just like doing a presentation, right? What's the hook? Can I have a selfish moment? I need you. Because not only are you expressing like the selfishness, but it's also you hitting the ego, like, oh damn, like I'm needed, I'm valued, right? Like, I need you, I value you. I can't do this life thing without you. If I lose you, I'll have to figure it out, but that's not my desire. My desire is to do the rest of my life for the rest of yours.
Yeah.
Right? So what am I doing there? I'm edifying, I'm praising, I'm building, like I'm highlighting the importance of you.
Yeah.
And you're devaluing that by what you do with your body. So that's what I tell. That's what I tell them. Like, to my,
Good.
Now, hopefully, I never have to say that, but
right.
Or if I
go ahead.
I'm saying if they were being presented to me,
that's what I'm saying. Now, let's flip it.
I would want to hear it that way.
And would it yeah, you want to hear it that way, then what would it do what it needs to do? Or is it just something nice to hear?
I mean, we human. You know what I mean?
There it is.
I would tell you this though. It would definitely be impactful. It would
Mhm.
definitely like damn. You know what I'm saying? Because
Give you
you're
something
not
to think about.
right. Because it's definitely going to hit, and it's like, hey, I'll work on it. I'll work on it.
Yeah.
But hold
Yeah.
me accountable, right? It's like there are some times where I give permission to people to get on my nerves about something that I know I need to do because I know I'm going to
Yeah.
be stubborn about it, right? So like even at work, if I tell a kid, "Oh, Mr. H, I need this. You didn't give it to me. Then why didn't you ask for again? Like this is something that you need, right?"
Yeah.
So even if you got to get on my nerves for it because you're the one that's losing, you don't want to get consequences if you don't have like it's safe as an ID badge. They need a new ID badge. I provide those. I tell them like you in high school, I'm not going to remember this for you.
Right.
So you have my permission to bug me until you get it. Do what you got to
Mhm.
do because that's what you have to do in life, right?
Absolutely.
Don't take
Absolutely.
don't take no. If this is what you need, get it, right? So with someone that I'm with and that I love, like, hey, you're gonna get on my nerves, but it's okay. It's okay to get on my
Mhm.
nerves about this. It's okay to bug me about this. It's okay to irritate me about this because
Yeah.
I understand, and it's gonna be hard because I'm gonna want to do it, and the irritation is not with you. I know you love
Mhm.
me. It's the irritation is I want to do this,
Yeah.
and I'm not being allowed to,
Mhm.
right? And so it's like, oh my god, all right, fine, okay, okay, okay. And sometimes you have to set yourself up for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know,
I love it. Oh, that's good. Okay. So that gives us a practical example for the person that is expressing and then for the person that's receiving. So when we talk about what makes criticism constructive, what I'm hearing is really about respect, right? You
mhm,
talked about like understanding how a person hears and receives, and I think about it. I just think sometimes, yeah, people want to share their thoughts and feelings, and I also consider social media, right? Like that's the platform, even for podcasts, right? Like it's a place for us to just say, this is how I feel about this, or
mhm,
this is what this looks like to me. But there's value in understanding that there's somebody on the other side, even if you don't see them. Like,
mhm,
when we make critiques about celebrity issues or things in pop culture, one thing that we always try to say is like, this is not to beat down or disparage the individual or individuals that we may be reporting on, right? Like, we want to
mhm,
take the story and talk about our feelings about that or our
mhm,
relationship to whatever that situation might be, but always understanding there's somebody on the other side with thoughts, with feelings, with experiences, and they may take things a little different or a lot differently than you intended. Now, sometimes people intend to be mean, and that we're not talking
mhm,
about that. But applying, empathy, respect, doing our best to not attack, right?
mhm,
And I'll just say, like, as for me, Dre Renee, the best way for you to get something from me or get a point across to me, do not attack. Don't attack me and don't try to embarrass me because I am going to shut it all the way down. Right? Like I can't even hear what you have to say. You might
mhm,
have all the merit in the world. It
mhm,
really is in the presentation. And also, when I think about being constructive, it's like, what's the end game? Is it just to say, hey, Dre, you're wrong? Or I don't
mhm,
like how you did this? Or is it to make sure that whatever I've done or whatever I'm working on is the very best quality? I can
mhm,
get with that. If it's like, hey, sis, this is good, but this can be better or greater, you're speaking my language because I always want to produce or do something in a high fashion. If someone looked at our podcast and it was like, this is great, but I have some ideas about how you can take it to the next level, ears open, right? But if you like, I don't know. I can't even pick something, but
Mhm.
if you came down on us with just, I hate this, this doesn't look good, this doesn't sound good, this doesn't, it's like, whoa, slow, right? Or, you know, getting in the comments, these are things that we're opening ourselves up to. I've not seen any bad comments about our show. Definitely sometimes people may disagree with some of the viewpoints, but everybody's been respectful. And I think that is the name of the game, right? When we talk about constructive criticism and applying sensitivity,
So
right?
let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Because the examples you gave were task driven, right? About something that you're doing, you know, or
Yes.
that we're doing. What about something that you have done that made someone feel something?
Yeah, I don't like being criticized at all. Let's be very clear. I'm right hand to God, Scout's honor, all those things. I do not, and these might be some things I have to work out in therapy, right? I think, and no diss to them, but the family that I was raised in was very critical, right? And not just to be critical. I think in an attempt to fashion me and mold me to be better than they were or whatever they saw for me. So I will say that, right? Like my mom was on me, like, right? Not in a way to break me. I never felt like, you know, she hates me, she doesn't love me. But the bar was always, it was very clear on where the bar was. So when I do something, whether it's a task, whether it's, you know, how I show up in my friendships or my relationships, I'm already attempting to hit the bar. Even if I'm not sure where the bar is, I'm like, let me go up to where I think my mom would have it or where my grandma would have it, right? And if I'm told that's not good enough, I think that already causes like, ooh, it's a grating feeling. That has nothing to do with the person, right? I'm not, that's not a blame, but it's like if I'm shooting what I think is my best shot in that moment, because of course we can always be better. I'm not gonna say like this is your best, because I remember your exercise, like raise your hand and as high as it can go and blah blah blah. So I know that. But if you're, at least if I'm not trying to give you BS, I'm really trying to give you something of quality, and that's like,
So
it feels away.
So is it, and this is just a slight deep dive in what I'm hearing, is it more the criticism or are you not giving yourself enough grace?
Never thought about it, and I don't know. I'm like, maybe it's both.
Right.
I don't think I've ever thought to myself like, oh, you need grace, and so maybe that is true.
Because like it's like you have this mark in your head, right? And it's like for some, this mark that you've always lived with, somebody's mark could be higher, and they see in you, hey, you can hit this mark, but also what I'm hearing from
or
you,
a different mark, right?
right?
Because it's not necessarily higher. Sometimes it's
Or just
like we talk about love language, right? It's here,
it can be
but you need to be over here,
right?
with it.
But what I hear from you is whatever the mark is, you're trying to hit it, right? And you may not even know the mark. It's the mark that you perceived. Right? Like, hey, this is a task I'm given. The mark wasn't explained. So I'm going to create a mark and I'm going to hit that mark. But not giving yourself grace to like, hey, I didn't hit the mark. Let me improve. Or no matter what the mark is, the next time I want a different mark or a higher mark. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not like we don't grow and we don't improve if we never change the mark or find out that we're not hitting the mark. Oh, okay. So what do I need to do to hit the mark then? Because my goal is to hit the mark, and if I'm not hitting my goal, then you see what I'm saying? And so it's, I don't know. I'm the person. I don't know that I don't like criticism. I don't like. I think
and I don't want to. Let me interrupt there, because it's not that I don't like criticism. I don't like sometimes how it makes me feel. there's
Now,
value
yeah.
in it.
Now we cooking with grease. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, it's value in it
Uh-huh.
because and I think you said it on the pod, like I'm very self-aware. So it's not much that I can hear that even will surprise, like, oh, because I probably already thought about it. Like, dang, I was trying not to come off this way and now I've come off this way, you know. So I got that, and seeing the marks or understanding that the mark has moved, or maybe I didn't understand where it was. In my mind, analytically, I can get with all of that. Emotionally, it's like, dang.
But it's, I think, moving forward, try not to take it as a knock or an assessment on your ability or even what you produced. It's just, it could be, I wasn't clear on the expectation, or this was good, but I know you have it in you to do better. Like, I see this and it's got potential for more, right? And so it's more like pushing yourself, but don't knock yourself down.
Right.
Like, damn, I didn't. It's because you can't change it. The work has already been done. The time has already passed. You can't do anything about that. All you can do is, okay, what is it that you need so that I can either fix it, or how can we communicate next time so I can make sure I have your vision in mind so that I can hit the mark that's set. Right. So I think it's more forward thinking, because when we feel bad about something that happens, that's retrospective. Right. And so we have to, like, you know, and so even me at work, like, sometimes certain things don't get done and I apologize for, like, hey, that, you know, well, why didn't this get done? It didn't get done. Like, I'm not into making excuses. Now, sometimes there could be reasons, but I'm not like, hey, you know, I can either get it done, or if it's too late, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What you want me to do? You know what I'm saying? Because I still have to go through the rest of my day. Yeah. I still have to move forward. And I can't do that carrying your burden, because that was your project, right? You right?
Right.
If I'm doing something for you, that's not my project, right? You gave it to me. I produced something. Either I hit the mark or I didn't. I can either fix it, improve it, or, you know. And if people keep coming back to you, then they know it's like, hey, no, I'm coming back to you because you still do good work.
Yeah.
You know, like, I still love the work. This particular time, this is just what I needed. So, that's more belief in yourself and what you normally produce. That's what needs to speak for you. Like, what do you do on a consistent basis? You're not going to be perfect, right? There's going to be times where it's like, hey, this can be better. You know what I'm saying? And then you get the feedback. Kind of like early on, we talk about this often when we first started, like when I told you, interrupt me, jump in.
Yeah.
Like, cut me off. It is. I'm not offended. Like, that's how this is going to work. You got to find that. You got to play double dutch, right? Like, hold on, let me just. And I'm like, okay, and that's my cue to shut. That's why, because I know my shortcoming is being too verbose, right? And so to do that, it's like I have to give you permission by letting you know it doesn't offend me. In this setting, now, you know, in regular conversation or something like that, don't cut me off. If my thought is an hour long,
I'll be like, I'll be back.
Yeah. Right, whatever, right?
If it's an hour long, I'll return.
I mean, I'm not going to hour, but, like, you know, I do not like being cut off. Even, and I hate, well, I know what you're going to say, then let me say it. It just won't be a surprise to you. Let me say it. Right. But, you know, because I think that's, you're respecting what I feel. You see what I'm saying? When you try to cut me off, like, let me just get this part over with, you're invalidating what I'm feeling, and not allow, because not only do I need you to hear it, I'm trying to get it off of me. Yeah. And off my, and say this out loud, you know? And so I think another tool that we can use in criticism is try to feel the experience of the other person, even if what they're criticizing you about isn't real, because they're still having an experience. Now, you can iron out the details and find out my perception, or, you know, which is now my reality. This reality that I've created from my perception is off, but you got to hear it out first. Yeah. And say, okay, he or she's having an experience. You know what I mean? And so let's talk about the experience that you're having and not get caught in the facts and the detail. Because I think that's where we start going wrong, is when we get caught in the details. Oh, you did, I ain't do that. We're not right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, hey, my criticism, I disapprove. And sometimes it's like, do we disapprove of the action? Because sometimes maybe we don't even have to talk about the disapproval. Let's talk about the feeling that the action is causing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What I disapprove of is how I feel about what you did. Right? What you did is causing this feeling, and that's what I disapprove of.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so how do we address how I feel? And that could be actionable upon you or upon me, right? In saying, I guess in your case, you disapprove of the feeling of not hitting the mark. It's not the criticism, it's the feeling of not hitting the mark.
Right.
There's nothing that person can do about that.
Right.
Right? Like, you want me to change the mark so that you can feel better? No, right? So we have to work on the feeling, not what made you feel that way in that sense. You know.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the other way around.
Absolutely.
I hope y'all receiving what we giving y'all right now, because
I mean, because we giving, well, at least I am. I'm being very like transparent with my stuff, so hopefully that helps. That helps somebody else.
Well, you don't have very many shortcomings, so you know.
No, I know that's not true, but like I said, I'm always in my head about, you know, how can I do things that reflect me well, and those that I represent, how to make sure that I don't, you know, offend. And I know you can't avoid offense because you don't know necessarily what offends people, but I don't go out seeking to, right? On average, to offend people. So there's always kind of this dance that I'm doing when I'm doing anything. Sometimes it's pretty exhausting before it even gets out there, just keeping it here, right? So to do all of that, and then at the end of the day have someone say, you know, and try to poke holes in that they don't recognize the care that's been taken or the thought that's been had to even produce whatever it is, whether it's a task or whether it's something I'm doing in an interpersonal relationship, or the sacrifice even. So my grandmother says to me the other day, I was, you know, call and talk to her on the phone. And she said something to the effect of, you know, well, don't let it get to the point where I forget what you look like. Now, for those of you who do not know, I live in a different state from my grandmother at this point. And I go home and on average have been home a lot until my dad passed. Now it's been an extended period of time. And so that, you know, hit me in a place. I understood what she's saying. Basically, I miss you. And I'm like, well, why can't you just say that? Because to say what she said meant to me like she's not even thinking about the fact that I'm grieving. I'm trying to figure out like what home feels. It really doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm calling you. You don't even call me. You know, like I'm having all these kind of things in my head, and I heard that as a criticism, even though I felt like, okay, that's not how she meant it, but that's what she said. And then that's how I received it, right? And then even when I do come home, I don't come home for free. That takes money. If I fly, it takes money. If I drive, it takes money, time, effort, sleep, all the things I'm sacrificing to do. And it's like, wow, do you even consider any of that?
You can teach her how to use Zoom.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, I'm calling you. I'm checking. It's not like, oh, I have no idea where in the world Andrea is and what she's doing. You want me to come and see you, and I get it. And I want to, like, I wish that I didn't have to go through so much to be able to see my family. But that's where we are in life right now. But it's stuff like that. Like that's a
Yeah. And that was
small example.
yeah, and that's two ways. Those are two different ways of saying two different things. Grandma, Andrea, I miss you. Grandma, I'm still grieving my father. You're both, that's what you're both saying, right? You're saying it with how you feel. She's saying it with, old school colloquialisms, right? That triggers certain thoughts. And so you had to walk yourself through. She didn't mean it that way, but she said it, but I still feel this way. Da, 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 da. Now, I know it's harder to talk to our elders, but could you have said, because I don't know how grandma would receive it, like, hey, grandma, can you do me a favor? Like, can we put that a different way? You're like, what I'm hearing is you miss me and I miss you too. Right. But that's hard for me right now. Right.
Yeah. And I said that. I don't think I said what I'm hearing is. I walked myself through that later. In the moment, I just said what was real, which was, coming home is harder for me than I thought it would be. But the next time that I'm there, or I'll let you know when I'm able to get there. I'm looking at, next month or maybe the month after, and I will, I'll keep you abreast of that and how that's going for me. Like I did tie it to what it really was, which was, it being harder. And also just things are happening in my life that make it harder to drop this and go spend a week in LA. It's like I have deadlines. I have, things going on with business, leadership stuff that's kind of just been one thing after the next. And so I was like, do I try to explain all this? I was like, I don't even, and I don't know if you even care, if your primary feeling enough to say that you don't even think about that, because everybody knows what just happened, right? But that wasn't even in your thought as much as how you were feeling in that moment. I didn't know how, will me sharing this bit of information even change that? But I wasn't mad at her. Like, it was annoying in the moment because I was like, but like I said, I know her enough to go, okay, this is really what it is. And yes, maybe you're just not equipped enough to be able to share that part. And it came out this way. But isn't that how, we experience people in our lives all the time? And the fact that we have to, kind of walk ourselves through that, is that fair? No.
And you know what? I changed that, like in the relationship with my father, right? Because I got fed up with him and my brother, because I'm the baby boy. Now, granted, I'm very direct with everyone in my life, but growing up, everything was always on their time and how they wanted it, right? Anytime they wanted something from me, it had to be on their terms. Anytime I needed something from them, it had to be on their terms. And that's because it wasn't just, we just some selfish narcissists. It's, you're the youngest, you do what we say. Right? That's how I was just always treated, because when I was little, I did everything they said because I trusted everything they said. Then I grew up and I'm like, hey,
I don't have to do this.
It was a different word that we no longer use on this show, but F y'all. So now when I give my criticism, like, I no longer fear my father's response to what I say, because you've been direct with me my whole life. You don't sugarcoat. You just tell me, boom, 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 right? And now I give it back to you, right? Because I told him one day, like, hey, I am your son. I am not your child, And so when I'm giving my thought and my opinion on something, this is based on me no longer being under your roof when you get to curate my experience and my knowledge base. I've had experience, like, you're wise and I respect your wisdom as a father, and I still do. However, I have had experiences that have contradicted your teachings and have led me to different thoughts. I no longer mirror all of your thoughts. You see what I'm saying? I no longer take what you say strictly for gospel. I respect it. I will analyze. I will compare it to my experiences and my knowledge base, and I will come to a conclusion. And it will not always be the one that you agree with. But the same way you want me to hear you and respect your viewpoint, I expect you do the same with me.
Do the same for me.
And so we had an interaction one time where he was doing his dad thing and talking and teaching, and he's giving me his perspective. And then when I started to talk and respond, I'm hearing right, because I think he was like outside in the yard working or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "What is that noise?" He was like, "Oh, I'm working in the yard. I had put the phone in my pocket." I was like, "You know what? I'll talk to you later." Why? I was like, "Because was the phone in your pocket when you was talking to me?" No. When you were talking, you were blah, blah. But when I start talking, you put the phone in your pocket. So you can't respect what I'm saying enough to listen. And you put the phone in your pocket. Nah. We will talk when you have the time to sit and pay attention and give me the same respect that I gave you when you were speaking. Well, go ahead. Nah, clean the yard, because right now that is clearly your priority. I don't want to pull you from that, by all means. But what I will not do is be invalidated and disrespected. So I'm going to allow you to go ahead and take care of that. And when you can talk and you want to listen, then we can do that. And so in a separate occasion, I told him that you are only comfortable sitting in the seat of the teacher. Right? And I know it's uncomfortable when you have to become a student to someone that is younger than you or hear a perspective, right? You don't know what you can learn. And one, I am your son. I am the one that you poured the most into because I was present the longest. And if you can't trust, how you taught me to experience and to study and to analyze and to be able to give, then why are we even having a conversation if all you ever want to do is teach, right? Shouldn't the expectation be of your son to surpass you?
Well, child, we're gonna need a different episode on that. Yes, for our parents and family members and elders, but also definitely professionally. I had that conversation with someone who used to be in the position that I'm now in, and the conversation was just that, right? I want you to surpass me, and that's a different mindset, and everybody doesn't have it. And you wind up competing sometimes with either your predecessors or in the case of family, like, your parents, your older siblings, if you have them. But yeah, that's crazy. But I'm glad that you had the ability and the courage to stand up for yourself and say, and not disrespectful, because our generation and generations, we laugh about it, but it is true. Like, you didn't have, if you had an opinion, you kept that to yourself. We weren't free to just.
That sounds so. We were yes.
You didn't say what you felt.
We weren't free.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Like, we didn't do that. You might have talked to your siblings or your cousins. You might have wrote that down in your little journal, your diary, and be careful that they didn't go through and find your stuff. Because I remember I haven't journaled consistently since I was a kid and realized my privacy was violated like that. I have never, and every time I think about doing it, and I can't get in trouble about anything, but I have never consistently every day. When I hear about people doing that, I'm like, I really would like to do that. But I trace it all the way back to getting sat down and like, and what is this? And I'm like, oh Lord, and the thing, I can't even remember what it was. Whatever it was couldn't have been that bad, because I really was a boring kid. But, I always had my own thoughts about stuff. I probably wasn't doing something, but I probably was like, this is some old bull. I'm sure I felt some kind of way about what somebody did.
I know the Noops actually violated. And so people used to call me Sebastian because I journaled for years into adulthood. And I remember we took a trip to New York, and no matter where, I was always in my journal, like, So you remember Sebastian from Cruel Intentions? And he always had a
Yes.
joke. So we out doing whatever, and I'm
And
always
you in the
writing.
corner.
And they're like, I was like, man, what the hell are you writing in there? Like they was literally having side conversation. What are you writing in there? What you think he said? You think he talking about us? So these fools conspired to get. They had to get their hands on this journal. And I forgot one time. I think I set it down or whatever, and I think they got a hold of it because they was just trying to. Yeah, I was just like, for real, y'all gonna violate like that? But you know, I was just trying to. They was like, look, you know,
we just needed to know.
we ain't trying to get compromised.
Yeah. But I want to just back to that point of just about being courageous, because that's a thing for somebody who's watching this that might be like a true millennial, or actually millennials probably, depending on what early millennials understand. Maybe the late millennials and whoever's after that, Gen Z, whatever. The people have become more free, right? With your expression at home. That probably sounds like, yeah, Barz, you know, and you should have done that sooner. No, he would not have lived to be this.
So for clarity, so these conversations did not, like, I think me and my dad had one blow up when I still lived in his house. And I moved out soon after because the law of physics started to take place, and the same matter can't occupy the same space at the same time. But my assertiveness, I don't feel courageous, but it was more like, hey, you know, it's more logic, and it took a lot of conversations. And because I'm my daddy's baby boy, and that's always been the relationship, it was a journey more so for him than it was me. Right, like, hey.
Well, do you think that verbiage has something to do, like, because you call yourself that for your mom and your dad? I mean, that is who you are.
Yeah.
But also as a grown man to say like, oh, I'm still the baby boy, as opposed to youngest son.
Well, yeah. When I say that, so the thing is, I still refer to my family in terms because this is what I was always called. My dad called me baby boy. You see what I'm saying? So that he was like, hey, baby boy, how you like? And he still does every now and again. You know what I mean? So, and I don't, people trip when I refer to him as daddy. Like, yeah, my daddy said, because that's what I called him. Like, that's my daddy, you know? I don't call him daddy, you know? I just don't, you know, and if I ever did, I'm not going to feel a way about it because he still is.
What do you call him?
Dad, Pop.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, like, what do you call? Oh, Pop.
No, I usually say Pop, like, hey, Pop, you know. But when I'm talking about him, I say my daddy, and I don't do this consciously. It just
that's weird to people.
Yeah, right. Oh, you grown and you said because like
that's who
a lot of them don't have a daddy, you know, or a lot of men don't have that relationship, right? It's usually, and if their fathers are there, it's usually you know, no, I still give my dad hugs and kisses like when I was a little boy, you know. So the relationship has not changed in the love and affection that we show one another, right? However, how we communicate, how we think, and how we respect one another, right? So the relationship, I still have a respect and reverence because this is my father. Right. But there's also another layer of friendship and mutual respect as men because I am a grown man. And what he had to realize is that his teachings, he would teach me how to interact with people in the world, but exclude himself from how, right? I'm like, no, right? And so the first conversation I remember was, matter of fact, when my brother was getting married, you know, I'm sitting on the couch and he ordering me around. And like, mind you, I'm the best man and I'm tired. Hey, get up and take me to the hotel. Like, I was like, and I looked at him real crazy.
You like
who you talking? You know what I'm saying? Like, don't talk to me like that. You know, like get your ass up, and I'm like, yeah, no, it was like super disrespectful,
daddy.
You know, and so now, like for me, you're crossing a line because I'm a grown man, and so I was quiet because I'm processing, right? So we in the car or whatever, and he's like, what, you got an attitude? And I was like, nah, attitudes are for women. I'm pissed. What you pissed off about? I was like, because you don't talk to me like that. And then you did it in front of people. You know what I'm saying? I was like, what we play? I was like, but I'm not playing. That wasn't play. I was like, you taught me don't ever let nobody disrespect me. And that includes you. You know, and so it was anger that I didn't care. Like,
yeah.
So I wasn't thinking about this is daddy. No, this is another man disrespecting me. There was a line that was crossed. Right. And so he kind of like in the moment was like, oh man, you know, but he's not an in the moment processor a lot. Like sometimes he is, but sometimes he has to step away and think about it. And he'll come back and say, you know, son, I heard you, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And so I give him that grace because that's new. Like he's normally in that position. And so nobody ever comes at him the way that I come at him. Like he's always used to being the alpha. He's always used to being the smartest one in the room. He's always commanded respect. But you've raised me to be this. I don't fear you. I don't fear your intellect. I don't fear, right? I'm going to challenge you because this is who you raised me to be. And I told you, you created this monster. You told me to think for myself. You told me not to just take whatever for gospel, right? Think, son. And so it's an ongoing joke. I'm like, hey, I asked him the last time we spoke, I was like, if you can go back in time to moments where you were teaching me lessons, would you tell the younger version of you that was teaching me? Hey, don't tell him that. Right. Right? Because when you tell a child that, it grows legs. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like you just said, don't let anyone disrespect you. You didn't give any details on how that looks. So what do? You ain't gonna disrespect me.
You ain't gonna disrespect me. Yeah.
So, and that's hard criticism, you know.
Yeah, that is.
I can only imagine that. I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine. But you know, he does well, and we have a great relationship. You know, because we're able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So
yeah.
Shout out to my daddy.
I don't have those issues. Every now and again, and when I say every, I can only really think of maybe 1 or 2 times that I've had to be like, Mom, can you do that a different way? And even still, because I be like, and it's not like she's gonna rain down fire and thunder, but I have such a tremendous amount of love and respect for her that I try to play it in my brain first before I'm like, did I hear that the right way? But even in having these conversations, you know, you do consider, which I had not before, what it looks like for the teacher to become the student in essence, right? Like my mom poured huge amount of herself into me. And so to have it come back at her, I wonder what that feels like. Not necessarily in a bad way, but just to be like, well, like, she has her own, like she don't come to me necessarily for and if I come to her, it's like, this is what I decided, or this is what I thought. It's not like, what should I do? Sometimes I'll be like, you know, what do you think about this? Or I'm thinking of this or this. But for the most part, yeah, it is now receiving, hopefully they feel like the very best of themselves. And sometimes it doesn't favor them.
Right. Well, because the part that they take pride in is now coming at them, right?
Right. So, and that's what I'm saying,
like,
because everything used to be to, you know, make sure that either we didn't get in trouble, we pleased our parents, so on and so forth. Now we're in the point of life, particularly for me to be in a marriage, like my mom's not number one anymore. She doesn't expect to be, but it's like, that has to be different. We used to do everything together. Now it's like, well, if I'm not doing this, or if there's a military obligation, then I have time to figure out what, you know. And so, what that must feel like. And it's another reason why I'm like, ooh, about having kids. Because you give everything to this person and then they go off and do their own thing. Do whatever they want to do. You like.
I think you have to develop that sense that your children don't owe you nothing. And we tend to treat children like they owe you for something they didn't ask for.
Yeah.
Like, you raising them, that was your responsibility. Now, we're not saying don't be grateful. Hey, thank you for how you raised me. For what you want. I don't.
But also,
You did all that so that I can go live my own life. You know. And I encourage people with children, don't raise your children to one day take care of you. Raise them so that they're able to take care of their children.
Yeah.
You know. Now, I know stuff happens and you get old and you know, like medically you can't, you know what I mean? But like, I think we hustle backwards in doing that, right? Like, we raise our kids to struggle. Y'all don't know struggle. Y'all need to know struggle. Why? Like, when you say that out loud, my children need to know what it's like to struggle.
Yeah.
No, it's like, hey, there's struggle out there. Here's how you keep from doing it. Let me teach you that. You know, let me teach you the value of hard work so you don't have to struggle.
That part.
Right? Like, and we in the Black community, we often talk about the white community. Oh, you was just given everything. Isn't that you?
I mean, I don't know. I'm on the fence about that.
I don't see a problem with
very valuable lessons that we learned as a result of not necessarily having I don't know, because
we didn't get
look at our lives and feel like we got everything to compare to what they
namely got. Our parents. Like, you heard everything. Like, did I? You know,
I think that's a generational thing, but I do agree that having the lesson is the most important thing, not just depriving your kid or treating them a particular way to instill a lesson. It's like, okay, they don't have to grow up getting nothing to learn to value what they have. Like, there's other ways, but that's, for the gentle parenting generation, that's what they say about.
I don't even think you need to gentle parent. Like, discipline, structure, all that can still come with that, right? But I think that's coming from the whole LeBron and Bronny James situation where, he declared for the draft and they're like, oh, he's not ready for the draft. He's a college player. Anybody can declare for the draft. Like, that's his right to do. Will he get signed to a team? Likely. But people are like, oh, it's just because of LeBron. And if it was. So I'm supposed to not take an opportunity because my dad is one of the greatest to ever do it. I'm not supposed to take
an opportunity. That's all the more reason to do it.
Like, if I'm not good enough, if I even think I'm not good enough, but I still have an opportunity to do it. Let's just say it was just another job. Like, because people get jobs because of nepotism all the time. Am I supposed to be like, nah, I'm not going to take this 6-figure job because that my dad helped me get? So I don't understand how you can blame somebody for what their father was able to provide them. Like, if you don't have what someone else has, blame your daddy. Not my, like, it ain't my fault your daddy couldn't do what my daddy did or what my daddy does. I'm not going to apologize for it either. You know what I'm saying? So this is how I was born. This is what I was born into. This is an opportunity that I was afforded, and I would be stupid not to take advantage of it. There's opportunities you may have that I won't get. I'm not going to sit here and be salty about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like we weren't all born into the same thing. That's just it's about the cards that you're dealt. It's not the cards you're dealt. It's how you play your hand. So just play your hand. It ain't my fault I was born with all aces or jokers or whatever the hell, whatever game we playing, So with that, y'all, let's go into our final thoughts on constructive criticism. We went all over the place, but I think we had a great time.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts?
Right. So with constructive criticism, it's in place, or should be in place, to help us be better as individuals, also to help strengthen the core of whatever relationship we're in. So if it is a friendship, and we didn't really spend a lot of time there, but that's hard too. I think in relationships, there may be the expectation to criticize or give your take, if you will, on your experience in the relationship, particularly if it's something that makes you feel uncomfortable. But generally in friendships, you know, you don't stop to see like, you good, we good, like, you know, you're friends. And then for some, one day something happens and then you're not, because maybe we aren't, you know, checking in. And so we're going to do some episodes really where we talk about friendships and the life cycle thereof, because perhaps doing some constructive talk, some constructive communication might really help to build up or sustain some friendships that wind up going by the wayside in our adulthood and these years. But I think, you know, overall, healthy constructive criticism is there to help strengthen our relationships. And it takes two. Yes, you want to make sure that you're delivering the information in a way that's not meant to cut or wound the person that you're giving it to. And even when you try, sometimes it may not necessarily land in the way. But I still think there's a way to, you know, finesse and follow up, if you will, that criticism to make sure that the person understands, and I'll say make sure, to clarify, you know, to the person that, you know, it's not my intention to hurt you. My intention is to make sure that I share something with you that can either make whatever, you know, our experience is better, make you better in the case of, you know, maybe a mentor, mentee, parent, child, or make that task that you're doing better if it's a professional relationship. Of course, we don't control how people ultimately receive what we have to say, but we can do our very best. On the flip side, when you are receiving the criticism, and, you know, this is for me too, you know, just being open to hearing it, excuse me, and making the changes that need to be made. That's something that I think, you know, I'm always open to, but after having this conversation, you know, to really consider that it's not a knock on you, right? It's not, as you said, an indictment on you, your ability, on your intention, on whatever it is that you put forward. Sometimes it just doesn't land. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just gives us the opportunity to try again. So that's something that I would say, at least considering on both sides. Let's be intentional with how we present our criticism. Here's another thing that we might not have touched on. When we present our criticism, there's sometimes you just got to hold it. You got to hold it. And it's like, oh, it's burning everything in me. I got to get it out. Maybe that's when you consult your journal. If you don't have anybody reading your stuff, right? Write it down, get it out if you need to, and then address it at a more appropriate time. Professionally, it's not always appropriate for you to just sound off. You know, if we're in a business setting, a meeting, could you pull someone to the side and say what it is that you have to say, right? So it's the how, it's the when. And also, just because you don't like something,
don't mean it's wrong.
Don't mean it's wrong. Sometimes people just feel like, you might be wrong. Right? And so your criticism isn't even necessary. But I'll get off my soapbox.
No, that's like, I will say this annoys me about criticism is when you criticize something that you have no action items for and it doesn't impact you. Like this doesn't change what you have to do today. You're just looking at something that I'm doing, and I'm not doing it the way you would do it. This has nothing to do with you.
I know.
Right? Like, why are you eating that sandwich like that? or like, I think I've done it before. Like somebody was eating a burrito sideways.
That is interesting.
That's like, why are you eating? Now they're enjoying the burrito.
Yeah.
How does them eating this burrito sideways affect me, my day, my diet, anything?
Right.
Like, if you eat your burritos front to back, then eat your burrito front to back. I'm gonna eat my burrito sideways.
Right.
And, they're like, I just like to eat it that way, like it was a sandwich. And I think I stopped myself. I was like, you know what? You look happy. and just move forward. So my final thoughts, I would say this: receiving criticism becomes a lot easier when you learn to criticize yourself. And when you can evaluate, be self-aware, and learn to be a harsh but fair critic to yourself, then criticism for somebody else becomes easy. You know what I mean? Being able to receive criticism, I have a lot of people that approach me to give criticism and they're nervous and scared to do it. And I'm just like, like what? So someone at work was like, hey, I want to give you some feedback, but it's hard. I was like, feedback is never hard. And she goes, but it's hard for me. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, like, because your perception of me is affecting your ability to give feedback. I'm not going to change me so that it's easier for you to give me feedback. You got to work on that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because a lot of people are afraid that I'm not going to receive the feedback, and sometimes they're right. Not that I'm dead serious. Just because you're giving me feedback doesn't mean I'm going to accept it. I'm going to hear it, but that doesn't mean I agree, or I'm going to change my course of action. If I feel that course of action is more effective, cool. But everybody has feelings. Everybody has a different feeling, and I'm not going to acquiesce to how everybody feels about what I do and how I do it, right? Because then I'm changing me. You know what I'm saying? If what you say I have value, I see value in it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that can be more effective. Bet, here we go. So I'm open for suggestions, but your part is, just because you're giving feedback doesn't mean someone has to accept your point of view, your way of doing something. It's a suggestion, right? And that's all it is, right? This is how I feel when you do this. And I could either be like, okay, I'll work on that, or hey, we got to work on that feeling. Because like I will support you in not feeling that way, but this is what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And so it's understanding the difference. And I also say, like, y'all, receiving criticism is not always an attack. And sometimes it feels like that because, it's not easy, and we don't want to be told that things aren't up to par, or we've hurt somebody. Or we don't like to hear that. But if you decide how you are going to receive it, sometimes you'll receive it as an attack, and sometimes it is. But I would say take your time and process before you respond or react, because what you hear isn't always what's being said, Right. And sometimes you got to call, like, hey, so let me tell you what just happened. Am I tripping? I'll call Dre, I'll call Maisha, I'll call my other friend Trisha sometimes, and I'm like, the conversation is always like, hey, tell me if I'm tripping, right? And if I'm doing this gesture right here, like, because where I am, I'm ready, right? And I need them to talk. I need them to talk me off the ledge, because what I heard, whatever I'm experiencing in that moment, then you add what's being said. I'm adding it to my current feeling. It's getting mixed in with my current feeling and interpreted a different way than you probably meant it. So I have to practice stepping back, because that snapback can be quick. And then, now they in their ego and pride, and instead of saying that's not what I meant, oh, you ain't gonna talk to me like that. And now we got this thing going, So become more self-aware, evaluate how you're feeling, the spaces that you're in, your bandwidth, how you're, processing, so that you can have the most effective, productive results orientation to what's being said. So y'all, we thank y'all for another ride at the Crossroads this week. I don't know which way we went in the intersection, but hopefully we met in the middle somewhere. But we love and appreciate y'all as always. And in closing, always remember,
be free to be you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, y'all. We love y'all.
Have a great one. See you next week. Bye.
This has been the Crossroads Podcast. And remember, be free to be you.